I don't know if it was arrogance or desperation that pushed me into it, but when I set up that ritual in my apartment in Boston, I was convinced it would be nothing more than an experiment. I had read too many half-baked accounts on forums, too many instructions buried in grim old PDFs that circulated on obscure websites, and in my mind, none of it could be real. It was the summer of 2017. I was living alone in a second-floor unit of a 3-story brick building on Commonwealth Avenue, just beyond Allston, a place always noisy with the sound of buses grinding down the street and students staggering home from bars. The apartment was cramped, a single bedroom with a peeling kitchen and a living room that looked out onto the trolley tracks. The night was humid, heavy, the kind where the walls sweat and the air tastes faintly of rust. From the moment I started, everything felt wrong. The instructions had been simple: chalk, a few candles, a symbol copied from a grainy scan of some forgotten book. I drew it on the hardwood floor, hunched over, sweat running down my neck, the traffic outside buzzing like an insect I couldn't swat away. I didn't believe it. That was the point. I wanted to disprove it. The moment I lit the last candle, the air shifted. It wasn't temperature. I've felt cold drafts and overheated rooms before. This was pressure, like the entire atmosphere thickened in an instant, pressing into my chest, swelling inside my skull. The sound of the city outside dimmed, as if the trolley lines, the car horns, the shouts of drunk kids had all been stuffed behind cotton. The flame of the candle in front of me trembled violently, though there was no wind. The chalk lines on the floor looked darker, almost charred, as though the wood had burned beneath them. And then came the smell. A stench of metal and rot, like old pennies soaked in spoiled meat, filled the room so quickly I gagged. I hadn't said any words, hadn't chanted anything, just scribbled symbols and lit candles, but something had already answered. The shadow formed not on the floor, but against the ceiling. A smudge of black that grew denser, thicker, bending against the light of the candles until it took shape. Not a person, not an animal, but something crouched and contorted, its limbs jointed at impossible angles. It clung to the plaster above me like an insect waiting to drop. I froze, every muscle in my body locked. My breath came shallow, ragged, the sound loud in the suffocating silence. The thing tilted its head. Even in the half-light, I knew it was looking straight at me. The pressure in the air deepened. My ears popped as if I were buried underwater. The smell intensified, searing the back of my throat. Then it moved. It didn't climb down or crawl. It fell, silently, landing on the floor just beyond the chalk circle. The candles sputtered violently, flames stretching as if drawn toward it, and the floorboards shuddered under its weight. Its form was both there and not there, a density of black that absorbed the dim glow of the room, never allowing me to catch its edges. Its limbs dragged as it stepped, jerky and unnatural, each movement too sudden, too violent, as though gravity applied differently to it. It paced around the circle. The floor groaned under each step, though the thing had no visible feet. My skin prickled with static, the tiny hairs on my arms standing rigid. My heart hammered, each beat slamming against my ribs so hard I thought they might break. I had expected to feel foolish, maybe bored, but instead I sat paralyzed on the hardwood floor, the circle of chalk separating me from something that should not have existed. The candles hissed. The flames bent inward. The thing leaned close, pressing its face, if it had a face, toward the chalk line. The air dropped in temperature, cold enough that my breath fogged. Its shape trembled, vibrating in place like it was forcing itself against the barrier. A sound rose with it, low and guttural, not from its mouth but from everywhere at once, the walls, the floor, inside my skull. The chalk cracked. The line beneath its weight splintered into white dust. I scrambled backward, my shoulder slamming into the wall. The candles nearest the break sputtered out, plunging half the room into darkness. The shadow surged forward, its form spilling into the gap. The smell of rot and metal flooded the apartment. My chest locked. My arms felt pinned. The pressure in the air was unbearable, pressing me flat against the wall though I hadn't moved. My vision swam. I clawed at the floor, trying to drag myself away, but every movement felt like pushing through cement. The figure extended a limb toward me, its end curling and twisting like broken fingers. The air around it distorted, rippling, warping the outlines of the furniture. The closer it came, the louder the sound grew inside my skull, a relentless buzzing roar that drowned out thought. I squeezed my eyes shut, but it didn't help. The sound was inside me, scraping through bone, rattling my teeth. My chest convulsed as if something had reached into my lungs and was twisting. When I opened my eyes again, it was crouched directly in front of me. Its face was inches from mine, a void darker than any shadow I had ever seen, its edges alive with tremors. My skin burned from the cold of it. My jaw locked, muscles seizing as the sound surged higher, 1,000 nails dragging against glass. Then it pressed against me. Not a hand, not a body, just weight. Immense, crushing weight. My back arched painfully as my lungs collapsed, my vision pinholed, edges blackening. Every nerve screamed. I felt its presence flood into me, pressing behind my eyes, curling around my thoughts like barbed wire. I don't know how long it held me like that. Seconds, maybe minutes. My mind fractured under the weight, panic dissolving into static. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't think. And then, silence. The sound cut off mid-roar. The pressure lifted. I fell forward onto the floor, gasping, my palms scraping the wood. The smell was gone. The air was still. The room looked exactly as it had before. The candles were burned low, their wax pooling across the floor. The chalk lines were smudged, broken where I had seen them crack. My body trembled uncontrollably, sweat soaking my shirt. There was no trace of it, but the silence that followed wasn't relief. It was heavier than the presence itself, an aftershock that lingered in my bones. The kind of silence that carries a promise. It isn't finished. I stayed on the floor, staring at the broken circle, my breath ragged, waiting for it to return. It never did. But the mark it left in my mind hasn't faded. Not in the years since.